This is Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom. Words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust that you will consider this your vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts from, would you subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a brief rating and a written review? It would be very, very helpful. I had a conversation with someone yesterday who was just sort of asking me, how does one define a good leader? Well, it would take a lot more than just one podcast to kind of flesh that out, but let's start doing it just in a real general sort of a way. First of all, let's define what a leader is. As I say continually on this podcast, it doesn't matter what you do or where you are a leader. At its basic, you have to lead yourself. You can't lead anyone else until you lead yourself. You're a leader in your home. You are a leader at your church or where you volunteer, as well as where you work, even if the word leader isn't a part of your title. I think Warren Bennis gives one of the greatest definitions of leadership. It is simple, but in its simplicity, it's very powerful. He simply said that a leader is nothing more than becoming yourself. It's not somehow you make over yourself or you become someone else, but you are a leader as you become yourself. I think I would word it just slightly differently in that I would say becoming a leader is becoming the person God created you to be. It involves a lot of raw material that has gone into to make any of us who we are. So I want to give, I believe, let me count them, about 8 things that I think will be at least the starting point, and we will revisit this several times over the next few weeks on these podcasts of, all right, how do we identify a good leader? The first thing that I want to say that I want you to think about today is a good leader has a natural curiosity. Are you curious about things? Now, I get to talk and interact with a lot of people, and there's some people that just don't seem to be very curious about much of anything. I know that there are some who evidently must subscribe to the tale they were told as a child that curiosity killed the cat. Well, boredom also would kill a cat and a dog and probably everyone else. There is a natural, one of the greatest ways of learning and developing is by developing a sense of curiosity. How does that work? How did that happen? What would it take? And those kinds of open-ended questions that as you begin to research it and study it or ask people or reflect on it, a good leader is a person who is curious. What I'm basically saying, if I was saying all of this in the negative, is it's the opposite of a closed mind, a person who feels that they know everything. So I think to be a good leader, and remember, Bennis's definition means becoming yourself. The first item that I would say is follow and develop a spirit of curiosity. I think the second thing that makes a good leader is one who just faces the challenges. There are challenges for all of us. Every area of life comes with a challenge. You can have whatever kind of a position you want, and you may think that your job is more of a mindless, task-oriented, just a physical labor job. It doesn't matter what you do. It really doesn't. There are challenges. If you get married, there's challenges. If you stay single, there are challenges. If you have children, there are challenges. If you try to buy a home, there are challenges. If you try to take care of yourself, there is no such thing as a challenge-free life. You try to pay your bills. You try to save. What identifies a good leader is someone who knows there are going to be challenges. There are going to be tough times. There are going to be difficult decisions that are going to need to be made, and someone's going to have to make the call. Oftentimes, I am called into situations simply because people and committees have kicked the can down the field, down the alley, thinking we'll let the next person or the next group or the next person figure out the problem. Listen, you're there, and here's why you're there. You're there to solve problems. That's something that every leader has to do. That's what we have to do for ourselves. All of life, there are series of problems, and we have to find our way through it, figure it out. How are we going to do it? So what differentiates a good leader from just someone else who's trying to fill a position is that a good leader rises to the challenge. Does it mean that they're fearless or they just sort of like that? No, I don't know that anyone really likes it. But if you're going to make a difference in this world at any level, you are going to have to rise to the challenges of life. So that's the second characteristic. As I was trying to answer someone yesterday who said, what are some of the identifiers of a good leader? The third one is, I think a good leader is someone who doesn't prejudge things. And by that I mean they don't prejudge people, which you know is the word prejudice. They don't prejudge circumstances. How often have you seen someone, and because of whatever, you have kind of prejudged who that person is and what they're about? Or you've walked into a situation and thought, this feels eerily similar to another situation, and you are already in your mind formulating the answers, and the person proved to be totally different than what you thought. The situation proved to be different. Don't prejudge. In other words, if I were saying it another way, keep an open mind. Keep your observation skills heightened, and use all the past experiences that you have, but be open to what may be happening right now. May not be anything like something that happened to you years ago. I think I could have listed this next one. It's the fourth one. Fourth thing that I think makes a good leader is honesty. If a good leader is a liar, and a leader doesn't have integrity, they're not a good leader. I think that the reason we shy away from being honest or candid all of the time is because at times we're thinking it's going to hurt the person's feelings. But I'm to the place in my life where I also discover, whereas we want to be charitable and kind with others, we have to be honest. We do no one any favor by coloring the truth, washing things down, not really stating the reality as it is. And I think you have to have an honest appraisal of yourself. You have to have an honest view of the others that you're working with. You have to have an honest feeling of here is what's happening, and let's just call it for what it is. People will follow a person who is honest, even if they are uncomfortable with some of the things you have to say that go along with giving an honest. Now, I'm not talking about being rude or mean-spirited. I'm talking about someone who has an honest appraisal of what, in fact, is transpiring. Always set your heart and mind to be an honest, trustworthy person. I think the fifth thing that I would say today, and there are many, many components that would go into a good leader, is a person who remains calm. Now, there was a time in my life when I was much more reactionary, and somebody said something and I would react to it, or something was announced and I would react to it. I am in my more mature years trying to practice remaining calm. A lot of it, as you get older, it's not that hard because you have faced a lot of things and you've survived. You've made it. The church, the organization, the place where you are, your family, your home, you've all survived. And you cannot make good decisions when you're hurried and rushed and upset and fixated on all of the drama that's going around you. Remain calm. Practice calmness. Get yourself in a state with the Lord or in your reading. prayerfully, however you need to do it. Find a way to remain calm. I believe the next one, which is number 6, is I believe that a good leader is one who listens. You've heard me be autobiographical in these podcasts. I am not by nature a listener. I am by nature a talker. But how often as I have reflected over my past that I can't think of a time that I learned much of anything when I was talking. But I have learned a whole lot by listening. Maybe it's the reason God gave us 2 ears and only 1 mouth. We should spend twice as much time listening. There are times that I have even listened to people that probably in my heart I wasn't sure what value they would add to the particular discussion. And they would bring up something, or they would have a quote, or they would say something that just sort of gets your mind to turning and going and resonates with your spirit. And you thought, that is a fabulous, fabulous idea. We have to learn to listen to people. There's an old quote that really I believe is from Eleanor Roosevelt, from way different era, who said, and I think this is great advice for anyone in a leadership position at home, work, wherever, church. She said, to handle yourself, and that's part of self-leadership. We have to not just know what our good points are and what we like about ourselves. We kind of know what our weaknesses are and the areas where we need to minimize and try to improve upon. Mrs. Roosevelt said, to handle yourself, use your head, meaning think your way through it, have a talk with yourself, do what you can to change yourself. And then she said, but to handle others, use your heart. I think most people have that backward. When they're handling themselves, they use their heart. They always give themselves the benefit of the doubt. Well, I wasn't feeling well, or this brought up something from a past experience. And then when they're evaluating others or dealing with other people, then they use their heart and say, well, this is the facts and this is the way it is. And they come down rather at times harshly. I think Mrs. Roosevelt helped us in saying we ought to do that the opposite way. When you're handling yourself, hold yourself to a strong standard. Hold yourself accountable. If you don't hold yourself accountable, it's difficult for others to do it, but someone will do it. And when you're handling others, use your heart. Give others the benefit of the doubt. Don't go through life thinking that person who cut you off in traffic had devised a plan to how to make your life miserable. They don't even know who you are. And the biggest truth that will ever come to you is when you realize this world is not all about you. That the world doesn't stay up at night thinking about you. They have their own issues to deal with. So let's use Mrs. Roosevelt's there. Handle ourselves, let's use our head. Let's hold ourselves to a high standard. When we're dealing with others and trying to handle others and their situation, let's use our hearts. Let's be compassionate. Let's give the benefit of the doubt. The 7th thing that I would say in this particular podcast about what makes a good leader is a good leader has developed wonderful observation skills. They have the ability to just see things and not to judge. We've already talked about don't prejudge things, but they observe not just what people say, how they say it. Then they observe when so-and-so makes a promise, do they actually follow through and do what they say they're going to do, or is it just all talk? They observe who are the folks you can count on. Who are the folks that will always give 100% and a little bit more. Observe, you can learn so much. You don't have to just be always in a book, though I recommend that you read a lot. Yeah, you can learn a lot by just observing the world around you. And then I think the last one that I want to give today as we run out of time is I think a good leader is fair. Oh, I've seen a lot of nepotism in my life where people will give advantages to a relative that they would give to no one else. Probably what makes nepotism so difficult is we aren't really sure that you can be fair. If it's your children, your cousin, your parent, your grandparent, your niece, your nephew, your grandson, your granddaughter, Are you really treating them like you treat everyone else, or do they get special treatment? Nothing poisons the atmosphere of an organization more than when people believe some are being treated unfairly, not because of skill or position, but because they are related to you. Be fair with everyone, regardless of who they are. I read a quote a few years ago that I think really sums up kind of the balance and the tension that a leader must live with. On the one hand, we want our leaders to be strong, but we don't like leaders who are rude. So practice being a strong leader, but don't ever become rude and mean-spirited. I think we want our leaders to be kind, but we don't want them to be weak. We don't want them to be the kind of people that everyone runs over. But yet we want them to be kind, we want them to listen, we want them to have an open heart for everyone around. We want kind leaders, but we don't want them to be weak. We want our leaders to be bold and decisive, but we don't want them to become bullies. We want people who will boldly strike out, lead the way, give strong encouragement and strong leadership, but we don't want one that will run roughshod over us and just bully us. It's not a good idea, leader, to ever be a bully. We want our leaders to be thoughtful. I would even go to say thoughtful and prayerful. We want them to be people who will reflect not only on what they are going to do, but to be thoughtful and reflecting about past decisions that they have made. Whereas we want our leaders to be thoughtful, we don't want them to be lazy. We like leaders with a sense of humor, but we don't like leaders who act like a complete idiot. It's good to have a sense of humor, but it's even better to know when it's appropriate and when it's inappropriate. I think some of the building blocks, just a few, not certainly all of them, but some of the great building blocks for being a leader is that they're a person who has a natural curiosity. They're a person who rises to the challenges and meets them and don't put them off. They're people who do not prejudge people or circumstances or situations, but gathers the facts and evaluates. We absolutely, and this should have been number one, we want leaders who are honest, women and men filled with integrity. We want people who remain calm. When the storms and everything is running around all of us, we don't need our leader to run around screaming and hollering and acting like the world's coming to an end. We want our leaders to listen to us and to listen to the voices of the people around them. We also want a leader, if you're going to be a good leader, we want a leader who can look at things and observe and learn some important lessons by their observation, through their observation skills. We want a leader who is fair. Now listen, you've been listening to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom, words on leadership, goal setting, productivity, and a whole lot more. I trust that today this has been like a vitamin or supplement for your mind and heart. And wherever you receive podcasts, would you go and subscribe to Dr. Ron's Words of Wisdom and leave a brief written review. And remember, leader, you are doing better today than you think you are. And until next time, this is Dr. Ron saying have a great and blessed week.